The dusty air of the auction yard carried a heavy sense of weariness. Horses shuffled in their pens, some with hollow stares, others pawing anxiously at the ground. Ben walked slowly down the rows, his practiced eyes scanning the animals. His hand rested on the brim of his hat as the midday sun bore down on his shoulders. Then he saw him, a tall bay horse with a sharp white blaze down his face. The horse's restless pacing caught Ben's attention. His head darted toward every sound, ears swiveling constantly, muscles rippling with tension. "That one's trouble," muttered a nearby groom. "Tried to jump the pen twice already. Doesn't stop pacing." Ben leaned against the gate, observing. This horse didn't just look nervous, there was a searching quality to his movements, a focus that set him apart from the others. The auctioneer's voice rose above the murmurs of the crowd. "Lot 43, 6-year-old gelding. Good potential, but needs work." Ben hesitated, then raised his hand. The bids didn't climb high. Soon enough, the gavel fell. Sold. By the time they reached Ben's farm, the gelding, whom Ben named Orion, for the white blaze that resembled a constellation, had made his presence known. Stomping restlessly in the trailer, his sharp snorts echoed through the quiet valley. The farm, surrounded by rolling pastures, was a sanctuary for horses that had run out of options. Over the years, Ben had taken in dozens of animals with battered bodies and broken spirits. It gave him purpose after the loss of his wife, Sarah, a quiet way to keep moving forward. But Orion wasn't like the others. As soon as Ben opened the trailer, Orion bolted, charging across the pasture with powerful strides. He stopped at the far fence line, nostrils flaring as he scanned the horizon. His ears flicked forward, his gaze locked on the distant hills. Claire, the local veterinarian and Ben's longtime friend, pulled up just in time to witness the scene. Stepping out of her truck, she raised a brow. "You sure know how to pick 'em." Ben watched Orion paw at the ground. "He's got spirit." Claire smirked. "Looks more like he's trying to find an escape route." Ben didn't respond. He couldn't shake the feeling that Orion wasn't just restless, he was searching for something. Over the next few days, Orion's behavior reinforced that impression. No matter how secure the gates or how soothing Ben's approach, the horse refused to settle. At night, Ben often heard the sharp clang of hooves on the stable door. By the third night, Orion managed to kick it open entirely. Ben stumbled out of bed, pulling on his boots and grabbing a flashlight. He followed the sound of hoofbeats across the field and found Orion standing beneath an old oak tree at the edge of the property. The horse's head was lifted high, ears pricked forward, as if expecting someone to appear. "What is it, boy?" Ben murmured as he approached cautiously. Orion didn't move, his gaze fixed on the hills beyond. Ben rested a hand on his neck, feeling the tension in the horse's muscles. "What are you looking for?" The question lingered in the quiet night. The next morning, Claire arrived to examine Orion. As her fingers brushed over the gelding's coat, she paused. "What's this?" Ben stepped closer. A faint, deliberate mark stood out on Orion's shoulder, a worn and faded brand. "Seen anything like it?" Claire asked. Ben shook his head. "It's not in the auction papers." Later, Ben went through the meager belongings that had come with Orion, a worn halter, a tattered blanket, and a leather saddle. As he inspected the saddle, his fingers caught on something tucked into the lining. He pulled it free, a small photograph, yellowed with age. The image showed a young woman standing beside Orion in a sunlit field, her smile wide and bright. Her hand rested gently on the horse's neck. On the back, written in faint ink, were the words Emily and Orion. After persistent calls to the auction house, Ben learned that Orion had been part of an estate liquidation. The previous owner, Emily Carter, had died a year ago. The news brought clarity to Orion's behavior. He wasn't just restless, he was grieving. "What do you think he's looking for?" Ben asked Claire as they stood by the stable. "Maybe he's trying to find her," she replied softly. That evening, Ben decided to see what would happen if he gave Orion the freedom to roam. He opened the pasture gate and stepped back. Orion trotted straight to the edge of the field, stopping at the same spot as before, his gaze fixed on the hills. A call to the auction house provided another lead. Emily's family had owned a small property in the foothills, a few hours away. Ben decided to take Orion there, hoping the trip might bring the horse some peace. The drive was quiet. Orion stood calm in the trailer, as if he understood the significance of the journey. When they arrived, Ben was met with overgrown fields and collapsed fences. A local farmer confirmed the property had belonged to Emily. She used to ride to a clearing in the hills, the man said. She called it her sanctuary. Ben led Orion up the narrow, overgrown trail. The horse moved with purpose, pausing occasionally to sniff the air, as if confirming they were on the right path. When they reached the clearing, Ben's breath caught. The meadow was bathed in golden light, and a lone willow tree stood at its center. Beneath its wide branches was a small wooden cross. Emily's name was carved into it. Orion stopped, lowering his head until his muzzle nearly touched the wood. Ben knelt beside the cross, his chest tight with emotion. "You found her," he whispered. Back at the farm, Orion's transformation was undeniable. He no longer paced or stared into the distance. Instead, he grazed peacefully and played with the other horses. One evening, Ben watched from the porch as Orion galloped through the pasture. "You're different too," Claire said, sipping her coffee beside him. "Less brooding. More open." Ben chuckled softly. Maybe he wasn't the only one who needed to find peace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ben walked to the edge of the field. Orion trotted over, resting his head against Ben's shoulder. "We think we rescue them," Ben murmured, stroking the horse's neck. "But sometimes they rescue us right back." In the fading light, man and horse stood together, both at peace with the journeys that had brought them home.